Alright, so this is Algebra 2 for 7 quadratic formula. Alright, so down here is the proof of the quadratic formula. It's the quadratic here, or using the quadratic formula. This is our quadratic equation in standard form set to equal to 0, so we could find the zeros. Just like we did before in the previous sections, we divide everything by a, so that we have a equal to 1. So then we have x squared plus bax plus ca equals 100. Then we subtract the c over a on both sides. So you have x squared plus b over a plus times x equals negative ca. Then we find the c part by completing the square. And we complete the square by dividing the b term, which is b over a divided by 2, which is b over 2a, and square it. And we add it to both sides. That completes the square on the left-hand side and gives us x plus b over 2a squared. And on the right-hand side, we have this squared, which is b squared over 2a squared, which is 4. So let's see how they got that part here. B squared, b over 2a squared minus ca, or c over a. They squared this part, right? So this is going to be b squared over 4a squared minus ca. Well, we can't really work with this, right? Because in order for me to subtract, we have to have a common denominator. So I have to multiply this part here on the right-hand side, top and bottom, by 4a. Which turns this into 4ac over 4a squared, which is what we want. So then this would turn into b squared over 4a squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. And that turns into b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. So that's where that came from, a common denominator. Then we square root both sides. So we square root that and get rid of that. That gives me the b over 2a over here, plus or minus, because we're square rooting this side, b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. So when we do that part algebraically, we square root that, so b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared, and we square root that. We're square rooting each one individually, or in terms of the numerator and the denominator. So it's going to be 4ac square rooted over 4a squared, and that turns into plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay? So that's where this part comes from. And it subtracts negative ba from both sides. Negative b over 2a from both sides. So then this is going to be negative b over 2a plus or minus square root of 4ac, 4 minus ac, or I'm sorry, b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And then we combine it because the denominator are the same, and we can say negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of that over 2a. This is a quadratic function. This is a quadratic function. And the x that we find is going to be the x such that it is equal to 0. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Using the quadratic formula, in this case, if I have an x squared plus 4x equals negative 4, I'm going to add the 4 to both sides. That's going to be x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. In this case, my a is going to equal 1, my b is going to equal 4, and my c is going to equal 4. And I plug them into the equation. As we recall, it's going to be negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac, all that over 2a. So for the first part, there's two answers, right? We'll plug it in. So b is 4, so this is going to be negative 4 plus, and it's going to be 4 squared minus 4, a is a 1, c is 4, over 2a. That's going to be negative 4 plus, remember that all that's being square rooted, 16 minus, oh, would you look at that, 16 over 2 times 1. How neat. So that's going to be 0, right? So that's going to be negative 4 plus 0 over 2, which gives me negative 2. So that's the first one. In terms of the second one, it's going to be plus or minus. This is going to be negative or minus 0 over 2. Which gives me the same answer. If I get the same answer doing both, that means I only have one solution. Right? If I don't have two answers, I only have one solution, so my answer is x equals negative 2. And negative 2 is going to be the answer that satisfies both situations. For b, again, I'm going to write the quadratic equation first. B, negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Given the scenario of an equation that has x squared plus 4x minus 3 equals 0. In this scenario, a is equal to 1, b is equal to 4, and C is equal to negative 3. So we're just going to plug it in. And that's going to be negative B. I'm sorry. Negative 4 plus or minus 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3 square root over 2 times 1. And that gives me negative 4 plus or minus 16 plus 12 square root over 2, which is negative 4 plus or minus 16 plus 12 is 28 over 2. Okay, so now we have two scenarios, right? We have negative 4 plus the square root of 28 over 2, or we have negative 4 minus the square root of 28 over 2. We can still even simplify that further. And we can divide the 2 and the negative 4. That gives me negative 2. We can divide the 2 divided by the negative 4 and the 2 divided by the negative 4. So let's do that. We can have negative 2 plus the square root of 28 over 2. Or we can have negative 2 minus the square root of 28 over 2. So we have two solutions. And we can leave it here. I'm okay with leaving it in radical form. Some of you guys might go even further and divide and give me a decimal. This would be 0.646. This guy would be negative 4.65. But I'd rather have it in as a rational situation. Here we have a word problem. It says that what is the least amount you could charge for a $100 profit? Actually, so again, our equation is going to be negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac square root over 2a. In this case, our scenario is going to be a it's going to be this equation that's given to us. It's going to be having a profit of at least $100. So this is going to be 100 equals negative x squared plus 48x minus 300. Subtract 100 from both sides, and I'm going to have 0 is equal to negative x squared plus 48x minus 400. In this case, a is equal to negative 1, b is equal to 48, and c is equal to negative 400. And we'll plug those in. Negative 48 plus or minus 48 squared minus 4. A is negative 1. C is negative 500. All that's being square rooted over 2a. It's 2 times negative 1. That's going to give me 48 squared minus of 4 times 400, which is negative 48 plus or minus the square root of 704 over negative 2. Okay. So again, I have two scenarios, negative 48 plus the square root of 704 over negative 2, or negative square root of 48, or negative 48 rather, minus the square root of 704 over negative 2. This one I can't do in radical form because they want a dollar amount, so I actually have to do the decimal form. So this is going to be negative 48 plus 26.5329 blah 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 over negative 2. I would recommend in this case that you keep the whatever calculation you have for the square root and don't round it until the very end, so that you have as accurate a number as possible. Anyway, when I go through all that, I get $10.73. Remember, I got to pick the least of these two. Or, this would be negative 48 minus root 704 minus 26.5329 over negative 2. So this would be $37.27. So the least that I can charge to make a profit of $100 is going to be $10.73 per. So that would be my answer. The discriminant. When you do the quadratic equation, and it's negative b plus or minus all that stuff over 2a, the discriminant part is the stuff underneath the radical symbols. So b squared minus 4ac. That's the discriminant. And the discriminant is helpful because it can tell you how many zeros there are, or how many times the quadratic crosses the x-axis. There's 3 potential answers. It can cross the x-axis 1 time, it can cross the x-axis 2 times, or it can cross the x-axis 0 times. Those are my 3 potential such scenarios, and using the discriminant helps me determine that. And how do I know? If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, then I have 2 solutions. if b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, then I have one solution. And lastly, if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, then I have no solutions. And graphing wise, if I had two solutions, that means that this guy is hitting the x-axis 2 times, my 2 zeros hitting the x-axis 2 times. One solution is just going to be the vertex that hits the x-axis here or here when I graph it. No solutions, it doesn't hit the x-axis at all, no zeros. No zeros. And I can tell that from the discriminant. So I get a scenario, and if I want to know how many solutions, this is really helpful for graphing. The first one, I have 2x squared minus 3x plus 7 equals 0. So I'm using the discriminant equation, which is b squared minus 4ac. And remember that a is equal to 2 in this case, and b is equal to -3, and c is equal to 7. So I'd plug those guys in. So this is going to be -3 squared minus 4 times 2 times 7. So it's going to be 9 minus 8 times 7, which is 56. That is going to give me a negative answer. So -47. So that means no solutions. No solutions. And in B, they give me x squared equals 6x plus 5. I'm going to subtract the 6x and minus 5 from both sides. So it's going to be x squared minus 6x minus 5 equals 0, where a is equal to 1, b is equal to -6, and c is equal to -5. So then when I plug this bad boy in, it's going to be -6 squared minus 4 times 1 times -5, 36 plus 20, which is 56, and it's positive, so I have two solutions. Okay. Using this in the real world, throwing something in the air, usually a football, but I guess in this case it's a golf ball. And we want to know if it will eventually reach the height of 115, if it gets that high. When you use this type of equation, this is a physics equation. In order for it to reach a height of 115, it has to be able to go up and down at t equals 0. So the equation that they give us is h is equal to -16 t squared plus 85 t plus 112. Since they want to know if it could reach a height of 110, I'm going to plug 110 in here for h. 110 equals -16 t squared plus 85 t plus 112. I'm going to subtract 110 from both sides because we want that to be 0. So that's going to be 0 is equal to negative 16t squared plus 85t minus 109 and 11/12. I'll leave it like that. Okay, alright, A is equal to negative 16, B is equal to 85, and our C is equal to negative 109 11/12. Alright, so we know that our equation that we're plugging into is b squared minus 4ac. So when we plug that in, it's going to be negative 85 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 16, times c, which is negative 109 and 11/12. Well, 85 squared is a big number, 7225. Okay, 11/12. Times 16 times 4 and get 703 4.6 bar. So that's going to give me a positive number, clearly. 109 or 190.33. So is there two solutions when t is equal to 0? Yes, two solutions. So it will reach the height of 115. So two solutions. And the two solutions means two scenarios. When t is at the vertex, or when it's not moving anymore, and then when it hits the ground. So yes, it will hit 110. Okay, so that's this section. I hope you have a great rest of your day.